Whole Cake Island is the worst arc in One Piece for me. This is disappointing since I was really looking forward to this story. Sanji being my favorite character and him being the main focus for the arc seemed like a good combination. Unfortunately for me, I could not enjoy Whole Cake Island. First off, I'd like to say that I'm not a writer or a literature nerd who is amazing at analyzing stories. I'm just some asshole who likes to read One Piece. I don't want you guys out there thinking that I believe my plot analyzing skills are far superior to everyone else's or that my opinion matters more than yours. Secondly, this video is my opinion. For those of you about to link some dumbass video about why Whole Cake Island is underrated, just know that 1, I won't watch it, and 2, you missed a point. And lastly, I did not watch the anime. I will only be talking about the manga version of the story. So I don't know and I don't care about the changes the anime made to the arc. My first big problem is that the payoff to major plot points are unsatisfying. Almost every plot point that got me excited for what happened next seems to resolve in the most uninteresting and boring way possible. For instance, Sanji is put in a really bad spot with these explosive bracelets and the threat of Zeph being killed if he resists. It is a very serious situation that he ends up beating Luffy up over, and it left me wondering how Sanji was going to get out of it. Is he or someone else going to have to do some cool Mission Impossible stuff to steal the keys from Big Mom? Is Sanji going to have to go through some soul-crushing decision to maybe sacrifice Zeph or something actually compelling? No. Reiju practically just snaps her fingers and both the explosive bracelets and the threat of Zeph become obsolete. The conflict disappears into thin air after being the catalyst of many of Sanji's personal struggles. The situation practically amounts to nothing. There are multiple examples of stuff like this in this arc. Like when Sanji was in the cuffs, he was being held back. It was frustrating to see him restrained like that. He tried to fight back against his brothers and resist Big Mom's family, but couldn't. So this gets me excited for when the cuffs come off and Sanji's no longer held back. I thought Sanji being free would be an exciting and cool turn of events against those that wronged him. But when the cuffs are removed, he doesn't do anything cool. He just cries like a little bitch and it's lame. Another whack payoff is how in the first half of the arc, the Vinsmokes are built up as this extremely vile and abusive family. These guys made Sanji's childhood hell and act like shit stains in the current time with zero redeeming features. The conflict between Sanji and his family is constantly at a boiling point, with him picking fights at almost every instance. But instead of Sanji proving the Vinsmokes wrong or showing them up, he gets this bullshit moment where he stands on a table. This table moment where he frees the Vinsmokes is bullshit for one reason. Sanji didn't earn it. Moments prior to the table standing, Sanji was getting his ass beat by Daifuku. He was unable to get past Daifuku or overpower him. The only reason he was able to get to the Vinsmokes was because of Big Mom's scream, which means that Big Mom did more work to save Sanji's family than Sanji did. So when Sanji stands above his family, it doesn't feel earned because he practically did nothing to get to them. If Big Mom hadn't screamed or if Pearl Sparrow wasn't a chatty asshole, the Vinsmokes would have been fucked and Sanji would be a failure. So Sanji standing on the table over his family isn't adequate payoff. Something similar happens between Sanji and Pudding. Pudding betrays Sanji pretty harshly and completely abuses Sanji's trust. After her change of heart, Sanji and Pudding never speak of the betrayal or even have a serious conversation about their situations. They replace it with gag scenes of them nosebleeding over each other, so it feels like the plot point was forgotten about. Let's not forget about the biggest disappointment. Let me set the stage. So there is a unique situation in this arc that the other arcs don't have. Big Mom is the primary antagonist and she is one of the few people that Luffy can't just beat up. This actually made things interesting because for the first time ever, brute force was useless. How are they going to get away from Big Mom, one of the 4 strongest and most capable pirates on the sea? A game of wit or maybe an epic escape? Nope, they just have Sanji bake Big Mom a cake as a distraction and that lets them escape. Now this is unsatisfying for 3 reasons. 1, Big Mom has been a raging bitch the whole arc. She does not deserve Sanji's godlike cooking. Instead of comeuppance, she gets fed delicious cake. 2, it's just not exciting. If this was a cooking manga like Food Wars, maybe, but this is One Piece, the action-adventure manga, so Sanji baking cake isn't exactly an exciting finale. And what's worse is the story treats this like some epic conclusion we've all been waiting for. Multiple panels of Sanji hyping up the cake like I care about this asshole's ability to bake sweets off screen, and the cake doesn't even knock out Big Mom. And 3, and this is a big one, there's no conflict with the cake. I had no reason to believe that Sanji couldn't bake the cake properly, so I'm never worried that he can't. Hell, the cake gets baked off screen with no sign that Sanji or Pudding even struggled with it. Now, any interesting story has to have adequate conflict or it isn't engaging. When the plot points are thrown out or poorly resolved, it just feels cheap. Why is any of this built up if it feels going absolutely nowhere? Most of the major conflicts in Whole Cake Island just kind of resolve themselves, which isn't fun to read. The next big issue I have with this arc is character motivation. Let me start with Sanji. At the beginning of the arc, he willingly goes to Big Mom's tea party as to not invoke the curse where she kills a random loved one. But he insisted to Mago and his dad that he's not getting married, so I can only assume that his plan is to show up at the tea party and refuse Big Mom and Judge's orders to get married, and that they would somehow be okay with this. And afterwards, he would just go back to the Straw Hats. This plan makes no sense, but let's ignore that. Let's pretend this is a solid plan. Sanji then gets into a fight with his dad, and instead of actually trying to keep the little freedom he has, he lets himself get beaten to submission where they put the bracelets on him. Why does Sanji let his dad win? What is his motive for throwing the match? He would rather prove some bullshit point than guarantee his safety and the little control he has over the situation? This is the start when everything goes wrong for Sanji. So now when he has the handcuffs on and Zeph is threatened, his actions to sacrifice himself here actually make sense. I know people give him a lot of shit for trying to distance himself from Luffy, not having any faith in him and trying to make a deal with Big Mom, but I disagree. Sanji took the action that made the most sense. In this scenario, Zeph isn't blown up, Luffy doesn't have his soul snatched out, and the worst thing that happens to him is that he has to get married. Him bluntly putting faith in Luffy would have gotten his hands blown off and Zeph and his crew killed. I was fine with Sanji's motivations here because it makes sense, but then Sanji overhears Pudding's plan and all this goes out the window. After he knows Big Mom is lying to their faces, he still tries to sacrifice himself. What the fuck? Why is Sanji trying to sacrifice himself after he knows it will accomplish nothing? He then later reveals that he wants to save his family from Big Mom's trap. After all the time he goes on about them not being his family and actively saying he doesn't care what happens to them, this sudden flip-flop in attitude is introduced. Wanting to save Reiju, I could understand, but the other family members, I don't see it. At first they say it's because of his kindness, but then they retcon it into Zeph wouldn't have liked him to abandon his family, even though Sanji refuses to acknowledge them as family. But what makes this worse is that that's right, me personally as a reader, have no motivation to see his family get saved. Up to this point, as I mentioned earlier, the Vinsmokes have no redeeming qualities. These guys casually threaten the life of innocent people to blackmail Sanji and beat women for fun. I don't care about their well-being. At this point, the Straw Hats have the Poneglyph, they have Sanji, they have Jinbei. They could just leave the arc and end it here, but no, we have to stay to save Sanji's family. So after everything at the tea party happens and the arc reaches its end, he leaves his family to die on Totland to Big Mom. Sanji just leaves them as Big Mom that he fully restored to health with the cake, pulls up to fuck them in the ass. What? What happened to Zeph wouldn't have liked that or his fucking kindness? He leaves them to die after the whole point of the wedding was to save them. The entire reason the second half of the arc happened was to save his family, and he left them to die. On to Big Mom, her motives in this arc make no sense either. She is making an alliance with the Germa to get in on some of their tech. The part I have a problem with is where she wants to kill them for access to the clone tech instead of actually making an alliance. It's stupid for multiple reasons. She already has homies which seem infinitely better. If she had put the souls into clouds and fires instead of putting them into teacups and pancakes, she would actually have an unstoppable army way better than the Vinsmoke shitty ass clones. There's also the fact that Big Mom might not know how to work the Vinsmoke's tech if she just kills them off. Also, getting rid of the Vinsmokes would mean getting rid of 5 valuable fighters that were able to overpower a Sweet General and some of her top men, as well as the fact that she would get the technology if she just made a regular alliance. They never provide a reason for her wanting to off them. Maybe if killing off potential alliance members was a thing she did regularly, it would be acceptable. But no, she lets Jinbei's crew and Capone, who is the most untrustworthy pirate on the sea, into her crew. I would have even taken a stupid reason for wanting to kill them off randomly. Like if Sanji's grandfather had stolen candy from Big Mom a long time ago, and now she's slaughtering the family for revenge. She's been portrayed petty enough for that to be believable, but we got nothing. The whole betrayal of the Vinsmokes thing feels paper thin. It feels like it was inserted just so the arc could have a plot twist for the sake of having a plot twist. The lack of believable motivation for the two main characters of the arc makes it feel like shit just happens for the sake of it happening, instead of valid in-story reasons. My third big problem with this arc is that Big Mom and her crew are whack. So at the start of the arc, Big Mom is actually an interesting antagonist to me. She had not only a physical presence with her immense strength, but an intellectual presence as well with this kind of bullshit intel network that kinda knew way too much. She was an interesting mix of super reasonable but still insane. Then all this is thrown away in order to make her a gigantic moronic baby. Her informants for her intel network, I guess, decided to take a vacation halfway through the arc, so she's just randomly clueless about everything. Suddenly, everyone could easily pull one over on Big Mom. Her presence as a threat evaporates, and she just becomes this joke that you don't really have to worry about. She's one of the strongest pirates in the One Piece world, but the way the story paints Big Mom, I just can't take her seriously. In the second half of the arc is when this intensifies. The Straw Hats that she is chasing are the same ones that were scared shitless by Doflamingo. Against Doflamingo, these guys couldn't do shit. They had to have Sanji save them. Now these same Straw Hats are able to cross up Big Mom? The story is portraying Big Mom as less than a threat than Doflamingo, which is ridiculous. And the countless times when Big Mom catches up to them but then is stopped by some bullshit makes her look silly every time. There are multiple chapters that end with a cliffhanger that usually had Big Mom about to do something deadly to the Straw Hats, but then next chapter, they would just easily deal with her. Now I can hear people already typing in the comments asking, well, what else do you expect to happen? Do you want the Straw Hats to die? And the answer to this is no. Just write the situation differently so that they survive, but Big Mom doesn't look like a joke. Think about this. Big Mom, one of the strongest people in the One Piece universe, is constantly being repelled by the weaker half of the Straw Hat crew, but I'm supposed to take her seriously as a threat? It also doesn't help that Big Mom had 8 super exploitable weaknesses. And the same applies to her crew. Her crew had like 3 good people in it, everybody else sucked complete dick. Throughout the arc, a majority of them are easily taken out with little struggle. There are multiple times where they get wiped out en masse. The ones that aren't disappointing in battle are incompetent and make dumbass choices that make the Straw Hat's job easier. Like when Smoothie heard about Luffy and Nami's breakout from the prisoner library and decides not to tell Big Mom or anyone else about it. Or when Opera lies about killing the Straw Hats to save his own ass but doesn't even run away from the island. Or when Peril Sparrow gives a soliloquy instead of shooting the Vinsmokes at the wedding. Or when Daifuku destroys his own fleet trying to kill Carrot. Or when Oven gets ran over by a boat on land. Or when Smokey does nothing for the entire arc. The problem being that if these guys are this stupid, it takes away from their presence as a threat. Caesar Clown felt like more of a threat than the Big Mom Pirates at some point. Katakuri showing up and actually making good decisions made him seem ultra competent, but only because everybody else looked really bad in comparison. This arc is all over the place with the quality of storytelling here. I don't even know where to start. How about with the pudding plot twist? I already explained why the whole kill the Vinsmokes part of the twist is a reach, but the way the twist was revealed was also a problem. This plot twist was a cheat. What I mean is there are several moments leading up to it that completely contradict the twist. It's only a surprise because Oda had to lie to the audience in order to keep it hidden. Like when Big Mom has Luffy and Nami imprisoned in the book, but then she says she's not gonna hurt them. She could have just killed them and make sure Sanji didn't find out. Lying to them is pointless. It's only there so the audience doesn't know that she wants to kill off Sanji. Also, when Pudding is dress shopping, even with no Straw Hats around, she is still pretending like she's gonna help them and tries to get away from Tamago, even though he knows the plan. Again, this scene is here to fool the audience and nothing else. There is also the chapter right before the reveal where Pudding whispers the plan to Luffy and Nami in front of Opera. Opera would already know she's evil. This is blatantly an attempt to hide the twist just a little longer. Having to outright lie to the readers in order to keep the twist hidden is bad writing. This arc is filled with a bunch of garbage that I can only help but notice. Like, how does Pudding, who has no combat training, incapacitate a Reiju that is suspicious of her? If Capone had access to the kitchens, why didn't he just poison the cake instead of trying to shoot Big Mom with missiles? Why does Big Mom move at the speed of light when getting to the Straw Hats, but when she catches up, she can only barely keep pace a couple meters behind? Cracker is shown to go toe-to-toe with Gear 4 Luffy, but I'm supposed to believe he couldn't get Nami out of a tree for 12 hours? In his first appearance, he was literally killing homies with a look. If the Straw Hats had access to the mirror world, why didn't they use that to save the Vinsmokes the night before the wedding? If Big Mom has a person on her crew that can read memories, why does she have Opera trying to get Lola's location out of Nami instead of Pudding? Why does Big Mom's intelligence go silent after the events of the Seducing Woods happen? How come King Bomb has to listen to Nami because she has Big Mom's Viva card, but he can ignore the actual Big Mom? Why can Sanji move at the speed of light when attacking Oven, but he suddenly can't dodge fodder with guns? Why does Katakuri's mochi stop being sticky in the middle of his fight with Luffy? Why is Judge surprised when his kids don't react to their imminent deaths when he's the one who programmed them not to have compassion or empathy? Why do the Vinsmokes, who supposedly don't have any empathy or compassion, worry about Reiju when she's being attacked by Big Mom? These inconsistencies poke at my brain while reading the arc and makes it fall apart. There are multiple times in this arc when a character spews complete bullshit from their mouth and makes a complete ass of themselves. Reiju spent the first half of the arc telling Sanji about how she's not gonna help him, that she's not on his side, and that he shouldn't have come back, but at that point she's already given Sanji the fake handcuffs and sided with him. Brook gives Big Mom a speech about how nobody plans to die. Meanwhile, 2 of his allies, Sanji and Pedro, plan on dying as he says this. Jinbei gives the speech about not being scared of a mere emperor, only to spend the second half of the arc running away from a mere emperor. Sanji says that he would never feed people as cruel as Big Mom or her crew when we already know his philosophy on feeding hungry people regardless if they're enemies or not. The problem being that these speeches are just pointless dialogue. It's like these speeches were just inserted to give characters a cool moment instead of having them actually be meaningful. If they wanted Brook to be cool, why not show him actually fending off Big Mom and wounding Prometheus instead of off-screening the fight? These panels are just a waste of time. Their words are becoming meaningless if they don't mean anything. I also take issue with the multiple speeches about Sanji's kindness. It's not that I don't think Sanji is a kind person, I think he is. The problem is that these kindness speeches are just so corny. This stuff was shoved down my throat more than once like Sanji is a saint. It was practically Reiju's only function as a character. She has almost no depth and is just there to regurgitate the same rhetoric about how kind of a person Sanji is and blindly be his cheerleader with no character arc. What's worse is that any meaningful speeches have already been done and been done better in other arcs. Like the speech Reiju gave to Sanji at the end of his second flashback about how he will find people that will love him is ripped straight from Robin's flashback. And Luffy and Sanji's dialogue near King Bomb's corpse, where Luffy asks Sanji what he wants, is just a bootleg I wanna live moment. The problem being that we've already tread this ground before and it isn't as impactful the second time. So Sanji isn't all bad this arc, he's more of a mixed bag. I really like the breakdown of why his character acts the way it does, but I also really hate how Sanji was kinda useless in his own arc. Most of the problems thrown in his way are solved by something or someone else. He doesn't really have much to do other than bake the cake. Sanji has no agency. If this were like Annie's lobby where Robin had no agency, it would be different, but Sanji was freed from his Robin position halfway into the arc, and he's still pretty much a non-entity in it. Him being one of the most capable people on the Stride crew, it was disappointing to see him have no real impact in his own story arc. Even his determined speech about saving his captain fails miserably when his brothers have to step in and save him. And another thing, let's talk about his second flashback. I didn't like it. It's just compared to his first one, his second one seemed really generic. There's a dead mom, it's overly sad, people cry a lot. It lacked the tastefulness of his first flashback. The terror he went through in the first one where he almost starved to death was less generic. It was still emotional and made me feel for Sanji and Zeph. This new flashback felt like they were trying way too hard to hit me in the feels, and it ended up having the opposite reaction. Also, what was the moral of the arc in regard to Sanji? The writing tries to make it seem like Sanji not being like his brothers is a good thing, but that falls flat when his brothers' powers and technology save both him and Luffy. The idea that Sanji is fine the way he is without his family's tech or mods is also discarded when in Wano he's forced to don the raid suit. The idea that kindness is absolute and that strength is irrelevant is shat on when his cake revives Big Mom to full strength in order to meet Jinbei and his folks. What is the point of Sanji's journey? He doesn't learn any valuable lessons or grow as a person. He just went through a ton of shit and the same person he was before the arc started. In conclusion, those are all the major reasons I despise Whole Cake Island. It really is my least favorite arc in the whole series. All these different problems come together to make it an unenjoyable read. It was a nightmare to read weekly, it was a nightmare to reread for this video, and even compared to other arcs the fandom deemed bad, like the Davy Back arc, I just hate Whole Cake more. Arcs like those are usually just a slight waste of time, they don't offend me like Whole Cake did, but I will note that I am not stubborn when it comes to my opinions. Who knows, maybe I will reread this arc 10 years from now, and the issues I listed throughout the video won't bother me in the future. As for now though, I'm not impressed at all. Hey everybody, I'd like to thank you guys for watching this video. Now this is normally the part of the video where somebody tells you to like and subscribe, but I'm not going to do any of that. I would just like to say thank you to Dritz, the former theorist. He helped me a lot with editing and the video software stuff. I'm new to this video stuff and I appreciate you guys watching. And while I don't care